I built my AI operating system in Claude Code, but when I looked at Cowork, I saw the same architecture, the same building blocks, just packaged differently. And in this video, I want to share the 5 shifts I would make to build a proper AI operating system inside Claude Cowork. If you're new here, my name's Hazel June, and I work with online businesses, designing online programs, building AI resources, and helping clients use AI. I've worked with top online programs in the space that generate over 7 figures a year, coached hundreds of business owners, and also trained thousands of people on program design and leveraging AI. Now, full disclosure, I don't actually use Cowork as my main AI setup. I would use it from time to time, but my main operating system, which I call the badass base, runs in Claude Code. AI employees, automations, skills, dashboards, the whole thing. Now, everything that I'm about to walk you through, I've already built just in a different environment. So what I'm going to show you in this video is exactly how I would build my AI operating system inside Cowork. Let's get into it. Most people have one Claude project or no project at all. And if they do have a project, it's where everything lives. Things like content drafts, client work, sales conversations, admin tasks, random questions, all crammed into the same context, the same instructions, and the same memory. That's like making every department in a company share one email inbox. When your context is general, your output is also general. Claude doesn't have enough context about your business and it doesn't know what the guidelines are for the task, which is why it sounds generic. And sure, you could fix this with better prompts, but prompts are short term. They tell Claude what to do this session, and you have to constantly write really good prompts to make it work. However, if you have a highly contextualized system, you don't need your prompts to be super good because the system instructions you mapped out in that environment already do the heavy lifting. So shift number 1 is this: build one dedicated Cowork project per business department. If you're a solo operator like me, and which I think most of you are, your departments could be client delivery, content production, sales and outreach, operations, and strategy. That means 5 different projects. Now, of course, these departments will vary depending on your business model. With this setup, each one has its own system instructions, aka a clear description for that particular function. It has its own reference files, aka the briefing documents, so the context is already preloaded. And it also has its own history of the work done within that particular department. Okay, so the question is, how do we set it up? Well, first, you want to make sure that you download the Claude desktop app, because that's the only way you can access Cowork. Once you've accessed the app, there are 3 tabs at the top. So we have chat, which is the Claude chat interface. We've got Cowork in the middle, and then Claude Code. Now, for this particular session, we're building an AI operating system within Cowork. So we want to access Cowork from this tab right here. And as you can see, there's a bunch of different options on the left-hand panel. We want to access projects. By the way, Cowork projects work differently than a typical Claude project. Your Cowork projects can access your local files or folders, and it can make changes within your chosen file directory. So to create a project, just click on New Project on the upper right-hand side. And a great thing about Cowork projects is that you can hook it up with a folder in your local drive, which means that you can ask it to create or update files within that folder. So that's what we're going to do. And then from here, just choose whatever folder you have in your local drive. So let me just do that real quick. Okay, so I've chosen my Cowork folder. And then from here, you just want to name it based on the department you want to create. For example, if one of your departments is called content production, then you want to create a Cowork project named content production. Then under instructions, you want to provide clear description of what that particular department is about, what winning looks like in that specific department, and other critical context Claude has to know about your business and how that specific department is supposed to operate. And then on this section where it says add files, you want to upload any relevant files about your business and the specific department so it has enough context that it can reference to. For example, in a content production department, you can upload your brand voice, your brand visual guidelines, or any previously approved work. This way, you don't constantly repeat yourself and rebrief Claude. It can just start working. Once you've added the files, just click create and you should be done. Now you have a specific department set up within Cowork. So that's shift number one, and it's the foundation everything else builds on. All right, here's something most people don't notice about how they're using AI. They're using it completely reactively. You open it when you need something, you ask, you get an output, and then you close it. And then maybe you come back tomorrow, maybe you don't. But that's not how a good employee works, right? A good employee has recurring tasks, things that they handle without being asked. And if your AI is only as active as your attention, like it only runs when you remember to open it, then you're still the bottleneck. The AI is just making your task slightly faster. So to do that, you gotta design the system so that the tasks are initiated on schedule autonomously. And that's shift number two. Cowork lets you set up tasks that run at a set time without you asking. This could be your weekly pipeline review, your daily morning brief, your end of week debrief, or your monthly metrics summary. You set them up once, they run, and then depending on the recurring task being handled, you review the output and make decisions. So that's the shift from manager, where you trigger everything, to executive, where the systems run and you just steer. For example, my end of week debrief runs in my AI operating system on a schedule. I don't have to remember to open it and ask. It's just there. I review it once it's done, and then I decide the next steps. Now you can set up scheduled tasks and Cowork in two different ways. So we talked about projects as your departments in shift number one. You can actually automate certain tasks within the project. So if you go to projects and then access one of your projects, aka departments, on the right-hand side, one of the things you can do is schedule a task. So all you got to do is click this plus sign and then fill out the form. You got to name it, for instance, daily briefing, enter a short description of what that scheduled task is about, and then provide specific, clear instructions. Now, since you're building or setting up the scheduled task within your specific department, it automatically selects that department or project's designated folder in your local drive. And then under frequency, all you got to do is just choose the schedule of that specific task, whether that's weekly, every day, or a specific time. Once you're done, just hit save. Now, setting up a scheduled task within a Cowork project, aka your department, is great and useful if you have recurring tasks within that department. For example, in the content production department, one of the scheduled tasks that I could have is coming up with content ideas. In my case, the content ideation task is also automated and it runs on schedule every Monday at 10 in the morning. Now, another way to set up scheduled tasks is if you go to the left-hand panel, there's an option that says scheduled. Very obvious, right? So from here, you can start creating your scheduled task. All you got to do is click new task, and you can either create it with Claude or set it up manually. If you click set up manually, you just got to fill out the same freaking form that's also in the projects. Now, if you choose create it with Claude, Claude is going to guide you through the process and basically just set it up for you. Now, you might be wondering, how do you choose where to set it up? Well, it really depends on the function or role. For example, a daily morning brief checks your inbox for critical emails, it checks your calendar to remind you of your meetings for the day, and it checks your task board for important tasks and priorities. Since that's a task that doesn't necessarily fall under any business department, I would use the scheduled function on the left hand panel to create it. However, if I want Cowork to scan YouTube to identify the top trends and keywords for the past 7 days, and I want the output to be automatically saved in my content production folder, and it's something other AI employees within my content production department needs, I'm going to set it up within a Cowork project that I created for my content production department. You can think of these automated tasks like a shift schedule where an employee shows up on schedule to do the work. And that's what shift number 2 builds within Cowork. Let me ask you, how many times this week did you prompt Claude with something you've prompted before? Like draft a follow up email, summarize these notes, rewrite this in my voice, or generate content ideas from this topic. If you're doing it more than twice, you got to start using Claude skills. You see, every time you reprompt from scratch, you get slightly different output, right? You have to re explain the context, re-establish the tone, redefine what done looks like, and that inconsistency compounds. The quality becomes unpredictable. Now, there's a version of this where your standard is encoded into the process and not dependent on your memory of what you prompted last time it worked. You do that by building skills for your repeatable tasks. A skill is a saved named workflow. Think of it like SOPs or standard operating procedures. It's like that training manual that you give to a new employee so that they know exactly what to do to complete a task. So the output is both predictable and consistent. For example, if you want a content brief built every time you run a marketing campaign, it's better to create a skill for that instead of reusing the same prompt every time. That way, it follows a standardized, structured workflow that already knows your content pillars, your brand voice, your audience before it writes a single word and without you having to reprompt it every time. And here's the cool part, you can build the skill once and use it moving forward on repeat. Now, if you're wondering, how do you create a skill? Well, the goodness is, Anthropic has built a skill on how to create a skill and is already added on your skills library, like this. So all you have to do is ask Claude to create a skill for you and make sure that you feed it with ample context on what the workflow looks like, what tools are needed, what output you're looking for, all the things. Kind of like what I've done here. It's like handing off your actual SOP to Claude. And then it will start creating the skill for you, like this. Now, if you don't have an SOP or process mapped out for the task you want to delegate, you can run through the whole workflow with Cowork so that it creates the skill based on what it went through with you. For example, if I've been posting on YouTube and I already have a standardized process on writing my YouTube script, I can just ask Claude to create the skill for me and give it my process doc, right? If, however, I just started posting on LinkedIn and I don't have a standardized framework on how I write my LinkedIn post, I can walk that process through with Cowork in real time. Now, if you do this route, write it a couple times with Claude or Cowork until you're happy with the flow. Once you find that the workflow works, you can then ask Claude or Cowork to create the skill based on that. All right, now once Claude or Cowork created or built the skill for you, all you got to do, you have two options. You can either click this arrow to download the skill, or if it has an option to save the skill, you can just click this button right here and it will automatically be saved in your skills library. However, if you have to manually upload the skill, you want to look for the customize option on the left-hand panel. Click that, and then you will be presented with two options. obviously you want to click on create new skills. Or on the left-hand side panel, you also have a way to access your skills library. Now from here, you want to click on the plus sign and then choose create skill. You will then be prompted with 3 different options to create your skill. Now, if you want Claude to create the skill for you, just choose create with Claude. Now, if Claude has given you the system instructions and you want to manually set it up, just click write skill instructions. What I usually do, however, is I just upload the skill. Remember that file that Claude has created for the skill? I just download that and then upload that skill here. Now, by the way, Anthropic has built a library of skills. All you have to do is click browse skills and you're going to find a bunch of different skills that you can just add to your library. So that's shift number 3, using Claude skills, which is how repeatable tasks get handled without being reinvented every session. Right now, most people's Claude workflow has a hidden bottleneck built into it. They open Claude, they copy something from somewhere else, like a spreadsheet, an email, CRM, a document, and then they paste it in Claude. And then they get the output, and then they copy it back, and then they do it again with the next thing. That's like 3 different manual handoffs for every single AI task. And they're the bridge for all of them. I mean, think about it. A human employee who can only work with information you physically hand them is not an employee who scales. You want to make sure your employee has access to the tools needed to do their job so they can get whatever information they need or update whatever system needs updating without constantly asking for your access. Now, as usual, the fix isn't better prompts, it's connectivity, which is why shift number 4 is connecting third-party tools to Cowork via MCP integrations, native connectors, or whatever's available for the tools your business actually runs on. So what are MCPs? Well, it's a technical term that stands for Modal Context Protocol. Someone explained this really well, and he said, tools use different languages. Without MCP, if Claude has to connect with a third-party tool like Canva, it will have to translate that other tool's language so it can understand it. With MCP, it doesn't have to. It's a standard connector that works everywhere. Now, if you're wondering, why do you have to care about MCPs? Are they useful? Well, you're probably using different tools. You have a tech stack. And when you delegate tasks to Cowork, you want Cowork to be able to access those other tools. For example, when Claude has access to your Google Drive, it can pull the document that's actually live, not just a copy you pasted from 3 days ago. When it can access your calendar, it can plan your week around what's actually booked. When it can access or read your CRM, it can prep for the call that's actually happening. So think of these connectors like a user login that you create for a new employee. When you hire a new team member and that team member needs access to your CRM so they can do their job, you'll likely create a new user login for that employee, right? That way, they don't need you to get the info from the CRM so that they can complete their task. They can just easily log in and access it themselves. One is knowledge, the other is capability. And that's what these connectors enable your AI employees. It's what makes Cowork feel like an employee who's plugged into your business, not just a smart assistant that you have to fully brief from scratch every single session. Okay, so how do we get these MCPs set up? Well, you want to go to Customize from the left-hand panel. And then from here, you want to click on Connect Your Apps, or from the left-hand side, you can click Connectors. Now, as you can see, I already have a bunch of tools that I've connected to Cowork. Now, if you want to add one of your tools and connect it to Cowork, just click plus sign. And then you have 2 options. First thing you want to do is browse connectors. And then from here, you're going to find different tools that are already available. All you got to do is click the plus sign to add it to your account. For example, you have a tool that you cannot find in the library, like this tool called Content Studio. If that's the case, you want to go back to this connectors or customize page and then click the plus sign And then instead of selecting browse connectors, you want to select add custom connector. On this page, what you want to do is type the name of the tool, and then you need to find the MCP of that tool. Once you find the MCP of that tool, all you got to do is paste it here and then click add. Now, you might be wondering, where do I find the MCP for the specific tool I want to connect? So here's what I do. I want to make sure that I'm adding official MCPs by the platform themselves. So what I do is I go to that tool's documentation or help center, and then I find the MCP within their knowledge base. Because let me tell you, there's a bunch of different MCPs available online. And the last thing you want to do is use unofficial MCPs because then you don't know if they're safe or not. As you can see, connectivity is the difference, and shift number 4 builds it. Now, when most people use Claude or Cowork for analysis or reporting, they usually get a wall of text, like a summary, a breakdown, bullets, paragraphs, more bullets, and that's fine. But when you read it, you also kind of absorb it. And then you still have to synthesize it yourself before you can actually make a decision. That's a bottleneck at the exact moment you need clarity the most. When you're reading 400 words to understand your pipeline status, you've already spent time you didn't have. A real operations layer shouldn't slow you down at the point of decision. It should accelerate it. And most people don't know Claude can actually produce something other than text, but it can. Shift number 5 is building dashboards or live artifacts. Claude can actually produce HTML outputs, interactive summaries, and visual interfaces, like actual scannable dashboards that show you the data without making you read through it. Your weekly business review isn't just a transcript. It will be a visual with a traffic light, a number, and a clear next action. Your pipeline status, for example, isn't just a paragraph. It's going to be something you can scan in 20 seconds and make a call from. You see, having visual dashboards are incredibly useful if you want a more efficient way to make sense of your data. You see, based on research, the human brain actually processes images around 60,000 times faster than text, which means we'll be able to understand information if they're presented in a visual format instead of plain old text. When you have visual representations of data, just one glance on the dashboard, you would know exactly which metric is underperforming. Think of it like the ops board. You know, that physical board in every ops center showing live status across all moving parts? That's what this looks like. Okay, so you might be wondering, how do you actually do this, right? What you want to do is go to live artifacts from the left-hand panel. On this page, it's going to show you a couple of different suggestions. And if you've already built live artifacts, it's going to show here as well. So what you want to do from here, if you want to create a new artifact, is just click new artifact and then choose create with Claude. Once you do that, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so it's going to start a new chat conversation. It's going to explain how live artifacts work. And then it's going to do a quick scan of your MCP connectors. And then from there, it's going to list all of the connected tools you currently have. It will also ask you a couple of different questions so that it knows exactly what to build. And then from here, it's going to start fetching the data and then also creating the dashboard for you. Now, let me show you something. Because in this case, when I created this, it doesn't show any data at all. And so you will likely have to go back and forth with Cowork if, the dashboard doesn't work or if there's any missing data or if there's any inaccuracies, right? And then it's going to troubleshoot itself. Now, if you're already working with Cowork on something, you can just ask it to build the dashboard for you and it will do it. So in this case, I attached a screenshot of my partnership outreach and I ask it to create a dashboard that shows my partner pipeline. It'll fetch the data, and then from there, it's going to create the dashboard for you like this. And this is how it looks like. Look at that. Pretty dope, huh? The thing with this, though, is it's not going to be saved through live artifacts because it's not connected to any of your tools. So you cannot create dynamic artifacts that will stay up to date based on the live data from any of your connected tools. Okay, so those are the 5 shifts. Your Cowork projects act as your business departments. The automated tasks are like employees on shift schedule. Your skills are like the SOPs that employees use to follow a standardized process. Using connectors is like giving employees user login access in order to do their job. Finally, live artifacts are like the ops board in an office. Now, these 5 shifts don't have to happen all at once. I actually recommend you build them in sequence or when the situation demands you build it. You can start with shift number 1, like get your department structured, and then set up your first automated task in shift number 2. Then you can identify the 3 things you do most often and turn them into skills in shift 3. Once those are running, you want to look at what data you're still manually copying into Claude and start connecting those tools in shift 4. And once the data is live, then you can switch from text outputs to live artifacts and dashboards. When all 5 are in place, you'll have an AI employee who shows up to every department, runs tasks on their own schedule, handles repeatable work, has access to relevant tools, and hands you decisions instead of walls of text. That's the difference between using AI and having AI working for you. Now, everything that I just showed you, I built them, not in Cowork, but in Claude Code, because that's where I run my full AI operating system. And it's just one way that I leverage AI in business. If you want to follow along my journey and how I build AI systems and leverage my expertise, make sure to hit subscribe and click that notification bell. I create videos on AI systems, productization, and building a solo business. If that is your jam, stick around. I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.